The Light That Failed. Again, what two books with the same titles say about change a century apart. Welcome to This Week Those Books, your rundown on books new and old that resonate with the week's big news story, and I'm Michael Macy. The big story, the Trump era formally begins in about 2 months, and many are predicting it will mark the beginning of the end of political, cultural, and economic liberalism in America and the wider world. That may be too sweeping a judgment, but this sentence in our first book pick is worth noting. Attempts to salvage the good name of liberal democracy by contrasting it favorably with non-Western autocracy have been undercut by the feckless violation of liberal norms. The very ideal of an open society, too, has lost its once fetid luster. This week's books are unusual in that both have the same title. The backstory. Though published nearly 120 years apart, both books reveal the same genetic trace: systemic resistance to change. This week's first book is The Light That Failed: Why the West is Losing the Fight for Democracy by Stephen Holmes and Ivan Krastev. This brilliant book dissects the West's failed effort to export liberal politics to Central and Eastern Europe. The authors ask the key question that arises as Donald Trump takes power in the United States and populism, nationalism, and faux democracy gain ground elsewhere. Why is Western liberalism losing ground even on home turf, having already failed to root itself in new territory after the end of the Cold War? Basically, they argue that 1989 heralded the onset of a 30-year age of imitation in former communist countries. Imitation meaning that with Western-dominated liberalism seeming unchallengeable in the realm of moral ideas, everyone was urged to get in line and embrace the one true way. The imitators had to acknowledge the moral superiority of the imitated, i.e. the West, fulfill expectations that their reform by imitation would be copycat rather than adapted to local traditions, and submit to regular monitoring of their progress. Even the concept of human rights became a cudgel of sorts and contested. This caused a backlash. A number of factors accelerated the resistance to Western liberalism. China rose on the world stage with few concessions to Western liberalism. The 2008 economic crisis showed the hollowness of Western claims to competently manage capitalism. Russia declared war on the liberal project, and Western liberal democracies themselves were seen to violate their stated values. On this last point, the authors cite the U.S. allowing prison torture, but any updated reckoning would include the unceasing supply of American weapons to Israel that caused the deaths of more than 40,000 people in Gaza. The authors also contextualized Trump's ascendance among American voters as the triumph of provincial resentment against cosmopolitan world. They write that Americans themselves accept their country's declining influence and no longer believe that they must improve the value systems and freedoms of their competitors, primarily China. A choice quote: "Liberalism's reputation in the region never recovered from 2008. Confidence that the political economy of the West was a model for the future of mankind had been linked to belief that Western elites knew what they were doing. Suddenly, it was obvious that they didn't. This is why 2008 had such a shattering ideological, not merely economic effect, both regionally and worldwide." The second book is also The Light That Failed, this one by Rudyard Kipling. Kipling won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and in this, his first novel, he points to a deep truth about inherent resistance to social change. Kipling reprises events from his own life to create the melancholic, manly world of Dick Helder. Having been beaten as a youth by his foster carer, meant that Dick shambled through the days unkempt in body and savage in soul. He becomes a war correspondent in the Sudan, an artist of some talent. He earns his living sketching the action on the battlefield, later going on to success as a painter. But he remains miserable because Maisie, his childhood sweetheart, is odd enough to shun marriage for life with another woman. Maisie, who's a passionate artist, prefers to live with a red-haired girl, someone Dick learns to hate. Maisie's dedication to her work and decided independence positions her as the new woman of the 19th century. Unfortunately, everybody must be either a man or a woman, Dick tells Maisie, adding that she is not a woman. It's clear that Kipling is horrified by modern womanhood. He himself was tormented by unrequited love for an artist who rejected his offer of marriage in favor of life with another woman. Though this novel has been criticized for its misogynist attitude, it could be said to convey the confusion that ensues when there is a shift in the tectonic plates of culture. The title refers to Dick and Kipling's failing eyesight, as well as the fading glow of love lost. Choice quote, Dick's eyes were full of joy when he made his appearance next morning and saw Maisie standing in the hallway. Palaces of marble and not sordid imitation of grained wood were surely the fittest background for such divinity. The red-haired girl drew her into the studio for a moment and kissed her hurriedly. Maisie's eyebrows climbed to the top of her forehead. She was altogether unused to these demonstrations. I hope you found this week those books thoughtful and a conversation starter. Support from readers like you keeps this news literacy project going. We have more than 10,000 subscribers in 117 countries. Please consider supporting us by investing in a paid membership so we can keep it freely accessible. If it's not possible for you to upgrade to pay, email This Week Those Books at substack.com and we'll give you full access, no questions asked. See you next week for another This Week Those Books.